Well, welcome. Thanks for coming to Taking the Hassle Out of Homework. This is a very passionate area of mine, and it's really designed for anyone. But in particular, if you have a child that struggles with a little bit of executive function challenge, this is a great place to be. Hi, welcome. There's some handouts up at the front desk for you. So, I'm Nordmeyer, and I'm a certified life coach. I'm also an ADHD coaching specialist. So I am very passionate about working with and partnering with adults and parents and children in particular who have ADHD, but I also do strategic life coaching. So I work with individuals who don't, and I also work with individuals who have executive function challenges. So that's where I'm coming from today in the presentation. I've had more than 20 years of experience personally and professionally working with this. So I hope to be a resource for you. What we're going to cover today is common homework hassles, and just kind of overview them. Talk about executive function skills and how they're connected to our struggles with homework. How many of you know what executive function is? Or is this the first time you're hearing it? So? Okay. Yeah, you, okay. Awesome. And then I'm going to share a 6-step approach that you can use to support your child. And it's what I do when I work with clients. And then some strategies. We're going to end with several strategies that might help with the whole homework struggle or hassle. So with that, is there anything else anyone would like to hear about that's not on here? But I need to parking lot. Okay. So what's the hassle? So what kind of hassles are you experiencing? I have a list for you, but I think it's always fun to hear what gets you going when it's homework time and pushes your buttons or.
This year I'm fortunate that I can get the kids sooner after school. So I have an 6.5-year-old. She doesn't, at least not that I know of, have ADHD, and then a 4.5-year-old. Okay. So we get home, okay, and we do homework right away. Okay. Which is working a lot better because her medication's still on board. Right. So we do an afternoon dose. But what I'm finding is if me reading the directions of the homework is anything different than she is expecting it to be, or maybe she heard from the teacher, or something is not meshing, then instead of just saying, oh, okay, Mom, that makes sense, okay, what a person would do. We have meltdown central. Yeah. And we have to table homework until like 2 hours later because it didn't go the way she thought it was going to go, so then we can't do anything. So we cry and we sit in our room for an hour until we can try again. Right. Help.
Yes. Yes, and I'll tell you, there's probably nothing you can tell me today that I haven't already heard and experienced. See, that is so common. What I find is that kids with executive function challenges, and specifically with ADD, where a lot of my expertise is that they get stuck and they start experiencing struggle typically in 1st grade, 3rd grade, when transitioning to 5th or 6th grade, when they have, several classes instead of one class, and in high school. And then some even make it all the way to college and the wheels come up. So when it shows up is really, it differs from one child to another as far as when the challenges are. I will tell you the sooner it shows up and the easier you address it, the easier it is for them later on down the road. So it's nice that when you have young kids, you're actually very proactive about trying to address it now. But my oldest daughter was very much like that. It didn't happen until her senior year. And we just didn't understand what's going on, right? But girls are wired to try a little differently, and sometimes it's just the complexity of what they're doing changes in some way, and they can't deal with it anymore. So they need new strategies and new skills in order to be successful. So here are some of the hassles that show up on the homework scene in my world or the world I've worked in, and that's, first of all, they forget their stuff at school, right? So yep, there's homework, but it's still on their desk, and we get home from work and we have to make a quick run to the school and ask the janitor to let us in, or hope someone's still there so we can get that homework so we can actually work on it, right? They lose or they can't find important papers. It might be laying on the ground next to the bus stop. It might be crumpled in a ball in the bottom of their backpack, right? It might be their English homework that you eventually will find in their science folder. So it just, things get lost. They can't find them. And this isn't an inclusive list. It could be any or, right? They don't have to have all these challenges, thankfully. Forgets what to do, right? Oh, I don't have any homework. And actually they do. Sometimes they actually deny it knowing they have homework because they're too overwhelmed. They have a hard time getting started. So they hope you won't catch the fact that they really do have homework. Because in their mind, they're telling themselves a story, there will be time for that later, or it doesn't matter. It won't count, right, for a grade. They procrastinate with getting started. So this is about you're home, you're doing your homework, it's time to start homework. Oh, let me just finish this game. Oh, let me just watch the rest of the show. I need to go play with my friends. I need to be outside, you know, I'm too tired, I need to take a nap. So dozens and dozens of excuses to procrastinate because they are having a hard time getting started. Easily frustrated. So working on math, for example, they might have some working memory challenges. They're forgetting the formulas. It's taking them 20 minutes to do one problem, and they are frustrated. And they are looking at the 12 problems left to go, and they're thinking, I'm going to be here all night, right? So they shut down, or they get frustrated. Or they might get frustrated because, of course, it says divide, and they're saying subtract, right? And you're trying to tell them, no, it's divide, right? Or it's write the story or show your work, not just give me the answer. So they get frustrated about the directions piece. It might take them too long. I've worked with students who are spending 3 or 4 hours on their homework at night. And it's crazy because the function for homework is to take and apply what you learn in school with a little bit of extra practice at the end of the day, so you get it and you absorb it and you integrate it to learn how to apply it. So hours and hours of homework is no fun for anybody, the student or the parents. Emotional overwhelm is about, that's that anxiety piece. That's the frustration, the anger, and overwhelm is about it's too much, it's too hard, I can't do this. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. That's like the amygdala hijack that goes on, and I'll describe that a little bit. But once you are in an overwhelmed state, you can't focus on homework. You can't reason with a child or a student and try to make it work. You have to take a break. You have to stop. And then the behavioral outbursts and meltdowns. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And then they get the work done and they leave it at home, right? They're on the bus, they're long gone, and you turn around and there it sits next to their cereal bowl, right? Or you go out to take their shoes or their blanket to the room or whatever, and there you see it, you know, on their desk or whatever, it's left at home. You get the frantic call, I need my homework, I left it. Missing assignments. So, and this is more about what executive function does when it's not addressed appropriately, is you're going to see missing assignments on school view. You're going to see low test scores because there's just challenges with the executive function that are not being met. Generally, I shouldn't be exclusively speaking here. And then they may do the work, they may actually get it there and they forget to turn it in. So that same assignment that was due 3 days ago is still in their folder, still in their backpack when you clean it out on Sunday, right? And then there is the child who shows up just feeling, not showing any motivation. They're indifferent, they don't care. Their motivation levels are out the door, right? And it's not that they're not motivated, there's something else that's standing in their way to keep trying and keep working at it. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So where do the struggles come from? This is the big question. Why is this so hard? And this is one of the very first things I dig into when I work with them. Why is this hard for you? Right? And that's a very big question. It's a very broad question. The answer is not always the obvious. But what I find from the perspective of being a parent is I have to ask myself, is this child being naughty, right? Or is there a neurological reason for this? And it's a mindset advantage that you can create. Because when you think of this as my child is being naughty, right? You get angry, your buttons get pushed, you get upset, and you'll react to that mindset. But when you think of it from the perspective of there's a neurological reason for this, it's a whole lot different mindset. You come from a place of compassion, you come from a place of love, and as parents, as powerful as we are, from a place of let's work with this together. Let's figure out how we can support you and get you what we need, because we're really good at that as parents, is lining up support and getting them what they need to be successful. So having a neurological mindset, unless indeed it is naughty, which is a whole different ballgame, then it's more about a counselor, right? But from a neurological mindset, you are more powerful and productive with helping your child. And behavior is more likely a symptom of an unmet need or neurological problem, because there's just not that many kids out there with things like oppositional defiant and conduct disorder, true oppositional defiance and conduct disorder. But you'll see symptoms of oppositional defiance when kids have a need, a neurological underlying problem that is not being addressed or met. So it'll show up that way. So what impacts executive function? And so why is this hard? What's creating the problem? This graph actually just kind of runs you through some of the things you have to think about. Because learning problems, nutrition, exercise, sleep, erratic routines in a home, high-level stress or chronic stress, mental health conditions, and physical health conditions all. There are several things that can impact our neurological system and how we think and how well we operate, how effective we are as individuals. So kind of looking at the big picture and thinking, why is this hard? What could be contributing? Will help you pinpoint the challenge and figure out what kinds of strategies and supports or modifications you can make to help your child. So what is executive function? Executive function is very, very highly researched, tons of research. There's really not any there is some strong consistent, but it's not always consistent from one research thought leader to another, but there are some very common denominators. So executive function is really about our brain's ability to interact and act in the world towards our goals and the challenges that we face every day. And most of the executive functions in our brain happen in the prefrontal cortex, which is this red area up here. And so if you had trauma, for example, to the head, that would affect executive function capabilities. If you have a disorder like ADHD or depression, anxiety, things in the spectrum, that affects your executive function because the stuff that's going on is in the prefrontal cortex of the brain, right? Same thing with sleep. Sleep often mimics a lot of ADHD-related symptoms because our body needs sleep. And when our brain doesn't get that rest and it doesn't sleep, we have several symptoms that are very common to like inattentive ADD. So that's the attention and the focus and the ability to persist and do things, right? We need, in nutrition, we need protein. We need complex carbs. We need a little bit of sugar for our brain to work effectively. So if something's off with the nutrition, you have another impact right there, right? Exercise, I had that on the slide before. A lot of research has shown, John Rady has done a ton of research, has a great book out there. And it's about the effect of even 20 minutes of aerobic exercise and what it does to your brain. How it kicks in those, what we call neurotransmitters to help you focus and pay attention and sustain what you're doing. How it raises your endorphins to make you motivated and want to try, right? And to keep moving forward. So lots of things play into executive function. Executive function is really about this area of the brain, though it does involve other structures in the brain too, but predominantly that and how we process our world, interact, and act on goals and challenges. So my favorite 3 thought leaders is Richard Guar and Peg Dawson. They talk about executive function as a high-level cognitive process that begins developing early in the birth of a child in infancy and continues for the first 2 decades of life. How we hear, oh, our kids aren't wired yet, right? As teenagers, it's so true, because executive functions are still being developed. We're still working on many of them, right? Russell Barkley is another big thought leader, especially with executive function and ADHD. And his thoughts are that it's about self-regulation, how we self-direct our focus, how we self-direct our actions, our emotions, our awareness of what we're doing in time, what we pay attention to, what we don't pay attention to. And Thomas Brown is another famous one of mine, and his illustration about executive function is that of the conductor in an orchestra. So a conductor's job is to stand in front of this wonderful orchestra and keep them all in time, working in sync, right? Playing their instruments at the right time, doing a good job, keeping in tempo, right? And so Dr. Brown equates executive function to that kind of a metaphor, with the areas of executive function being activation, focus, effort, emotion, memory, and action. So that is and this is Richard Guar and Peg Dawson's book, Executive Skills in Childhood and Adolescence. So I do want to mention it because I do have them on the screen. One thing that you might already know they've produced is Smart But Scattered, which is a wonderful manual for kids with ADD, but also executive function challenges. So this would be helpful for you as well. And then Smart and Scattered Teens, which is even more helpful. And this is really about the high schoolers and middle school too, but all the way through college too. So they talk about what the executive functions are, which are on this next slide. Whoops, there. See if it comes up for me. Oh, there it is. These are their 11 executive functions, and they talk about that, and they give you some really great ideas on how you can help bridge the gaps in executive functions for your kids, how to work through the process. I'll cover a little bit of it today, but I encourage you, if executive function is a challenge, to look for those books and pick them up, because they've been really resourceful for me and for many others I've served. So these are the 11 executive functions of Guar and Dawson. And I also gave you a handout that talks a little bit about what they are on that handout. One of the things I do when I work with parents is I ask them to read the list, and I ask them to rate their kids, on a scale of 1, 2, or 3, with 1 meaning I rarely struggle and 3 meaning I struggle a lot or often. Where are your kids with those executive functions? And you can take that home with you and think about that, right? This is an informal assessment. If you really feel your child has a lot of executive function challenges, you might find it very helpful to get an evaluation done, from a scientific-based inventory for executive functioning through neuropsychology. Professionals, developmental pediatrician can do it, schools can do some executive function testing. The Alexander Center here in Woodbury, I think, can do it. Children's Hospital can do it. Neuropsych evaluations is what they're called. There's a few other places as well. So your pediatrician should know where to direct you if you feel you would like an executive function assessment. I'll say that with my kids, 2 out of 4 had them, the 2 that struggled the most. So it was very helpful. Again, coming from that neurological mindset instead of you're just being naughty, right? So when you look at some of the things you shared with me, what's the hassle experience, and you look at the executive functions, I'm wondering, can you see some correlations? Like disagreeing with directions. What executive function on there might fall into place there? I know it's kind of like a test, I'm sorry. It's not, I'm not testing you. There's probably several in there, but flexible thinking, right? Flexibility. Sometimes with executive functioning, we can be very, I'm stuck, I'm done, I've done enough, I'm done, right? No, that's not what it says, right? I know what it is, I've got it, I've got this thing, I'm not wrong, you're wrong, I'm right? Somebody has to be right, somebody has to be wrong, and it's not gonna be the kid, I can tell you. The kid is tired of being wrong, so they're gonna be very rigid about some of their thinking, so. Flexible thinking, right? Sometimes it can be working memory, right? So sometimes working memory is different than long-term memory. Working memory is what you hang on in the process of working with something, right? So working memory is often a challenge in math, for example, because you have to hang on to a formula in order to work the problem as you get older, right? A working memory can be a problem with reading, because you can read a whole page, but you can't hang on to it long enough to remember what is the 1 or 2 concepts that I just read that I need to carry into the next page and the next page, right? Working memory can be a challenge taking lectures, notes, right? Capturing information, trying to hang on to what the teacher just said while the teacher's coming at you with something else, right? So it could be about directions, could be about working memory, and just not getting the whole picture. And there's some ways you can deal with that. Meltdown, emotions. Emotional control is one of, and response inhibition are one of the 2 most common executive function challenges in younger kids. So everyone I've worked with that's younger, that tends to be one of the first few things we have to work with, right? And response inhibition is one of the most important ones, because you have to have response inhibition under control to start developing skills in a lot of these areas too. So they kind of ping pong. Did I lose my page? I did.
It's back. Oh,
no, it moved on me. So you have to kind of look at the bigger picture. But response inhibition is acting on something before you think it out, right? I'm just going to get angry that you're trying to tell me I'm wrong without thinking about the fact that maybe I'm wrong, right? Or maybe I missed something here, right? Meltdowns and emotions is going from 0 to 100 with our emotions, right? Instead of pausing, taking a breath, trying to let your brain catch up with you, what you're thinking, and to rationalize it a little bit more. Emotional control, again, is that 0 to 100 reaction with our emotions, not giving our head a chance to catch up with what's going on. So, emotional block stuck is really, that is about the emotional control piece. That is about amygdala hijack. And I might as well just say something about amygdala hijack here real quick. Amygdala hijack, anybody heard of that before? It's a process in our brain. So I know you've heard fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so that is kind of what the amygdala and the hippocampus, I hope I said that right, work together to do. When we see the tiger in the road, we're either going to go fight that tiger, we're going to run away from that tiger, or we're going to freeze, right? And so kids who have anxiety, kids who have overwhelm or stress, on a fairly chronic basis, which is very common with ADD, because we're always worried we're going to mess up, make a mistake, right? Our brain is kind of in that amygdala hijack mode pretty chronically, right? So one of the biggest things we can do is teach our kids how to calm down, how to just take a breath, how to step back, how to pause. We call it the pause button. How can we get our kids to pause long enough? Let their head, take some breaths, get some oxygen into the brain, and let our heads catch up with what's going on so we can actually start thinking again. Because in the fight, flight, or freeze mode, it's about survival. And all those complex abilities of the brain to work, to process, to function, are shut down in order to survive, right? And in the survival mode, it's all about me versus you, right? It's not about, I can do this, or it's not about, I know I have the strengths and the intelligence and the ability to do this problem, right? It's about, I've got to survive, I'm not doing it. I'm going to run, I'm going to breathe, right? So I would say that it connects to anxiety and emotional blocks as well. But there's a lot of other things that would too, like maybe it's about planning and prioritizing. And so the project is too hard to them because it's so hard for them to plan or prioritize. Maybe it's about managing their time, right? And they think that they're anxious about the whole thing because they're thinking that it's going to take them, a whole hour to do 4 problems, right? Or it's going to take them 3 hours to write the outline for a paper, right? The time management piece we'll talk about in a few slides down the road. Goal-directed persistence. I'm done. It's probably, he's saying I'm done because he's done. He's put in as much as he can, and he's got to take a break so he can move on. So that's really about sustaining attention, and it's about persistence, goal-directed persistence, right? And being flexible. So I want to make sure so how can we help? So the first thing we have to do in the 6 steps I have on here is pinpoint the challenge. So that's going back to the homework cycle that I have over here and on your slides as well. You have it to take home. Where is the problem exactly? So homework starts when the assignment is given. It continues at home, and it continues when they go back to school. So figuring out where are things breaking down in the homework cycle. Where are things breaking down back with the slide where I showed how so many factors can have a neurological impact on our kids. And when you pinpoint the challenges, you'll be in a very powerful place to identify some of the things you can do to help. The next is to identify gaps in the executive function skills. And I don't put those up, ran out of white space, but to actually go back and think, where's my child with respect to executive function on this checklist? And how is it connected to the hassles that we're experiencing right now, right, with homework? And then building a bridge to close the gap, and that's particularly with executive function. So I'll go over that in a second. The other one is to collaborate. So this is about building a support team. This is about how can we modify the experience for our child in different environments. How can we adapt? How can we pull in extra support for them to keep them in the game, to keep them successful, right? And to experience some success. And then motivation. And motivation is really about what's in it for me, for your child, right? Some of us can persist with goals and work on goals without the motivation, but most kids, and that instant gratification is so important for them. And the what's in it for me is so key, right? But it doesn't have to be an onslaught of expensive toys, gadgets, gifts, etc., right? I love to think about the 5 love languages. Chapman is the author of that book, and I use it a lot. And actually, I had 6 here. So I know there's 5, but somehow I've created 6. Just like so I think about, is my child, or is this child someone who loves pats on the back, who loves hugs? You know, they're very comfy kids, and they're nurturers, you know, they love that connection with their parents. Or is it affirmative words, right? That's my love language. So I love it when people say, great job, wow, you ran 5 miles. You know, that's cool when people notice that and they acknowledge that for me. That's a big love language for me. Quality time, right? Some kids just desire, we're in busy schedules every day, and they just want to go play basketball outside, you know, with dad for an hour, or they want to go to the hockey game with their parent, or, you know, something like that. So having quality time. Just saying, today's your day, you worked so hard in school this week, we're going to go spend an hour or two doing what you want to do. It's your agenda, right? Quality time. Gifts and gadgets, yeah, some of us are like that, right? And privileges. So I love privileges because when our kids are in high school and they become those young adults, they want privileges, but they're still in our house, right? And instead of giving them everything at once, they earn them. They're privileges. Privileges are a very valuable motivator for older kids who are, you know, in that mode of, I'm creating some autonomy, and I don't really want you telling me what to do, right? It's about me running my life now, right? But if they're working towards privileges as a motivator to keep trying and working on developing skills, it's really effective for them. So, and then services I have down too. You know, just being able to go get your nails done if you're a girl, or some fun things like that. So mom taking me and my friends to the mall, or whatever. So finding what those motivators are. And then one thing down here I have is leverage their strengths and passions. So you remember the list of executive functions that I have out? None of us are good at all of them, even if we don't have executive function deficits, right? And so leverage what works for your child. Leverage their strengths. Find out what they're good at. Strengths, I think of strengths in terms of character traits, talent, or gifts, things we're wired to do. You know, I have a very artistic daughter, incredibly artistic daughter, but can she do math? No. I cut her some slack, I give her support. Her mother can't do math very well, right? Yeah. Things we work at passionately. You know, a lot of boys are into video games and things, right? And that's what they love, and that's what they're passionate about. But it's kind of digging deeper. What is it about the video game that you love, right? How did I do that? Okay. My computer is playing with me. What is it about the video game that you love? What is the challenge? You know, and how can we take that challenge and what you love doing with that video game and make it more real world out there, right? Something that will help you grow instead of keep you parked in front of the screen, right? So we already talked about this. This is where we were. But leverage their strengths. Look at what they're passionate about doing. And you know, cut them a little slack where they're not gifted, where they don't have the strengths. Understand that none of us really are. So this was just pinpoint the challenge. I already covered that, so I'm going to keep moving forward. This is about identifying any gaps in executive function. So using the sheet I gave you and really kind of looking at it and evaluating. If you think there's a lot of ones on there, you might want a neuropsych evaluation if you haven't already done that. You might want to dive in a little deeper because this one is informal, right? It's not scientifically based. This is just based on my understanding about executive functions, and it's based on Laura Dawson's book too. So, and this is the part I wanted to jump in more. This is where we're at. So, Laura and Dawson talk about the ABCs as a way to scaffold. When you help your child, when you're developing a strategy that works, you want to meet them where they're at. Where are you at? Sometimes with executive functions, our kids can be anywhere from 2 to 4 years behind in any of those 11 areas that I showed you to their peers, right? Because if there is, for example, long-term neurological impact, they're not going to develop at the same rate as their peers in one area or another. It doesn't mean they're behind in all those areas. There just might be some real trouble spots that you need to bridge the gap. You need to meet them where they're at. So if they're a 16-year-old and they're acting like a 14-year-old with respect to inhibition or impulse control or time management or being organized, it's okay. Meet them where they're at, but start building the bridge for them to develop the skills to move forward, right? So ABCs of scaffolding for Gore and Dawson is A is for antecedent. So that's look for ways you can support and modify the environment. So like at school, some ways to support and modify the environment might be getting the teacher in on, providing a few extra services, or working with the teacher to find out how you can help and how they can help, and you can work together as a team. It might be getting a list of assignments from the teacher. But nowadays they put everything up on their web pages, which is so cool for us, right? It might be the student checking in with the teacher before they leave for the day, just to say, is my backpack, do I have everything I need? Did I forget something, right? And having a teacher or even a buddy, because a lot of kids don't like to be different.